Good afternoon and welcome to another Michigan Military Technical and Historical Society COVID-19 shutdown virtual tour video. So today I want to take a brief look here at our Hudson Invader 168. So the Hudson Invader was a marine engine, as the name suggests, was manufactured by Hudson Motor Car Company. It was a Hall-Scott marine engine, and Hall-Scott could not produce enough of them for the war effort, so they licensed them to Hudson, and Hudson produced, I believe it was about 4,000 of them. So it's a 997.8 cubic inch engine, a 5.5-inch bore, 7-inch stroke. It produced a whopping 210 horsepower. At 2100 RPM, but about 754 foot-pounds of torque at 1400 RPM. So this was a big, lazy pulling motor. You can see it was a 6-cylinder, but we have this distributor with 12, so it was dual plug, dual coil. You had the two Zenith carburetors, which were made here in Detroit by the Zenith Carburetor Company. We are missing the valve cover off of this one. This engine here came from the Miller Motors, the Hudson Museum down in Ypsilanti, back when Jack Miller was still alive. They had this one sitting out in the parking lot. They had used it for parts for the one they have on display in their museum. So the valve cover was actually said Hudson Invader 168 on it. We know where the valve cover is at, but the gentleman who has it likes it, and I'm hoping that maybe one day we'll be able to reunite it with this engine. There is also a cover that goes over the transmission here that said Hudson on it, had the Hudson logo. He has that as well. So maybe one day we can put it back together. It's kind of a cool engine. What's interesting is that you have this big triple row timing chain. You know, it's a overhead cam, you know, with a dual plug, and then you have this big timing chain here that runs this pump. Runs a gear here on the back that drives the oil pump, the water pump, and then we're missing the shaft here, but it also runs the generator. So you have the oil pump, the water pump, and the generator all run together in this gear, in this shaft driven off of this gear, and then the distributor is run off of the generator, which sits up here in the front. You have the big water-cooled manifold on the back side, and it's just a pretty cool engine. We have some of the parts over here. When they were delivered to the government, they came with their own gauges that actually had the Hudson Invader 168 on them. And then here's some spare parts that we were able to locate that are still in the original packaging, the wax packs. I think this is a set of valve springs, and this is a set of spark plugs. This engine was used in a number of different boats, small craft. We were told it was used in some of the LCVPs and things like that. So we have to assume, we're making the assumption that these engines may have just been shipped from the Hudson plant at Connor and Jefferson up to Algonac, where they might have been used by Chris-Craft in some of their vessels. I mean, we don't know that for sure. Most of the landing craft were diesel, and this was a gas engine. But there were some gasoline-powered landing craft, so that we would say that this is the engine that would have been in it. We know they were also used in some of the 40-foot air-sea rescue launches. But it's a pretty cool engine. It's big. I can tell you this thing is incredibly heavy. When we retrieved it, I know for a fact that I bent my engine crane trying to pick this thing up, and it didn't help that it was full of water too. I think I drained, I don't know how many gallons of water I drained out of this thing when we got it back to the shop and started cleaning it up and restoring it. But we are missing a couple pieces. We're missing one of the air filters and that, the valve cover and that cover, and there's a couple other things. So if you got any Hudson Invader parts laying around, let us know. We'd like to put some of the stuff back on this engine if we can find it. So we have our mannequin behind it here. So we're kind of making an extrapolation, and once again, this is kind of we are making the assumption that the landing craft that were sent to for the Rhine crossing may have been gasoline powered, because the Army ran on gas, not on diesel. And it would have made sense that if you were shipping landing craft, that you might have shipped them gas-powered ones rather than shipping diesel-powered ones, along with the supply of diesel fuel. So that's the reason why we opted to make our mannequin here an LCVP crewman, on the Rhine crossing. So he's wearing the N1 foul weather gear, and we decided to make him a D-Day veteran, so he's got the blue band around his helmet. After D-Day, they were supposed to paint these out, but this guy here wanted to make sure everybody knew he was a veteran, so he left his in place. There's some cases of that. Again, we took a little bit of artistic license with this guy, but I don't know. He's been watching over the engine. He's doing a good job. So real quickly, we'll come over here, and what we have in here is the 230 cubic inch Dodge inline six that was used in pretty much everything. It was a Dodge commercial engine. This particular engine we rebuilt, and it was going to go in our WC52. Unfortunately, that WC52, once we started tearing into it, we came to the conclusion it just was not worth the time. We weren't going to put $20,000 worth of restoration into a vehicle that was worth about 12 to 15. So we ended up selling it off, but we kept this engine because this is a good engine. It's all done. It's ready to go. And this engine is going to end up going into our Clark CT6, because it's the same engine that was used in the Clarks. And if you've watched our earlier video on our restoration shop, you'll see some of the images of the Clark that we're restoring that had the wrong engine in it when we got it. So this is the engine that's going to go in it. We're going to have to change the bell housing, this bell housing and front motor mount and water neck and the carburetor. Those are all, and actually this taller oil fill, those are all unique or specific to the Dodges. So we have to put the Clark front motor mount, the Clark bell housing. We need to replace the oil fill tube with the shorter version, because this one here, you would not be able to put oil in this engine with this taller one in it, because the Clark hood doesn't open. So you need the shorter tube. And then it also uses a different carburetor from the Dodges. So we have to make a couple of minor changes to this motor, and then it's going to end up going into the Clark. And hopefully somewhere in the next year or so, you'll see that thing running around here. So here's our little engine corner at the moment. And with that, I will sign off. Say everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you when this is over.